So, what do we know, Bell Pepper? We know some people like babies better than snakes even. Got a day at home today. Gonna try to catch up on some stuff. So Bell Pepper is heading to town in a little bit to help Mom with some errands. But I'm reconnecting with her. I've been gone a little bit lately. She really looks different to me. She's getting a lot bigger. She's pretty cute, pretty talkative, pretty happy baby. So I thought I'd do a state of the garden today because there's some stuff going on in this garden. For real, ain't there, little girl? Some stuff going on in the garden for real. And I'll be doing a tour of that today. But for those who grow a little tired of just all our nature videos and animals and stuff like that, I am a homesteader too. I do garden. We do a lot of things, but I'm a wild man of a homesteader. So I like being out in the wild, ain't that right, little girl? So, being gone a lot lately, I'll give you guys a little bit of monologue first and then tour around once this little girl heads to town. We'll give you guys a good view of her while I got her. Hey, baby girl. What are you looking at? Birds flying? Hey, do you see that? Ooh. Do you see that? You're shy? You don't want to say hi, you want to say shy? Gone a lot lately. It's about the harvest, the weeding and upkeep, and then also our fall and winter planting stuff has been falling behind. It honestly has. When I look around, I'm very happy and pleased with where we are. I'm very glad that everything we have accomplished has been able to get accomplished. But also when I peek around, I just see all that needs to be done. And it really makes for quite a chore. Plus, when I leave for work, especially if I'm gone overnight or, for an entire day or a stretch of days, that means Mama's at home doing all the meals, taking care of all 6 kids, doing all the schooling on her own, and stuff like that. And yeah, so I'm not really, other than running out here to grab something for a meal, I'm not expecting a whole lot of stuff to get accomplished out here in the garden in my absence. Trying to be realistic. And that's just the way I see it. What you thinking, girl? Ooh, you gonna go help Mom in town today? Does that make you happy? Does that make you happy? Yeah. She just likes to nibble on everything. What are you gonna try to bite now? How about if I put the camera by you? Will you try to bite the camera? Will you try to bite the camera? There they are. They're looking at you, girl. Yeah, and she just turned 6 months a little bit ago. We'll get you ready to go to town, okay? You're gonna sneeze, you okay? Too much sunshine? And then I'll show you guys a little bit of what's going on a little more in depth here. Alright guys, so little Bell Pepper went to town to help Mama. And I'm back here, no baby, no hat. Gonna give you guys a brief tour and then try to accomplish some things around here. A lot of cool stuff going on, but then also some disasters. I mean, if you look behind me, this is a disaster, and I'll show you what I mean. So my sunchokes, it's our 2nd year growing them here. I run a couple of wires around them to keep them standing upright, but had some massive winds a little bit ago. Look at this. They're all trashed and broken off. I mean, these are some big things. But yeah, just tore off. So a member of the sunflower family, Jerusalem artichokes, sunchokes, and now they landed on top of some of my peppers. So those mini bells down there aren't doing quite as good because they got sunchokes on top of them. So one of the things I'm going to do here is pop these out. They're absolutely beautiful, probably 12 feet tall, some of these here, big stalks. And this year, there's a little sign. This year I'm going to be offering some up in our Homesteaders Co-op store too. So if Jerusalem artichokes, if sunchokes are something you've wanted to try, we're going to share ours this fall when we harvest them, and I'm going to have two different sizes, kind of a smaller package and a larger one. I'm going to figure out what shipping costs, add a bit to that just so we make something off of selling them, and then offer them up for sale. I'll do a special video when I do that. Over here is where we've got kind of a mixed package going on. I've got some grapes growing up to the upper level, a couple different kinds. The ground is strawberries, and right now I've got a number of escapees kind of heading out, so I'll pick those escapees, reestablish them here, put them in another spot, start a new bed. And then the cool thing too is our walking onions, I featured in a video a while ago. They came back. We harvested quite a bit of them, and eventually they kind of died back to the ground, but now they're back up in force and we're able to harvest them once again. We just had a soup the other day with some of them in. So very cool to kind of have multiple layers of food here. The strawberries, the walking onions, and then heading up to the grape level too. Very excited with that. So this is the trellis where I was growing my snake gourds. This year I saved 5 for seed. So I've got one down here that, you know, when it fell, it hit so hard it actually broke. And then I've got 2 over there that are drying up, and then I have my big one. So I ran a contest this year. It's still not over, just a snake gourd growing contest to see what people could pull off if we got growing this plant. I wanted to introduce it to people, let people check it out, try it out, eat it, and then just kind of have some friendly competition too. I still haven't measured my big one. That'll be coming up soon when we get some final results, and we'll go from there. But snake gourds are done for the year. But this isn't even a trellis actually for my snake gourds. So the actual reason that I put this trellis here was for these guys. So this green stuff you see is a bunch of vines coming out of one central plant. They are cold hardy kiwi. So cold hardy kiwi is absolutely delicious food. Small little green furless, hairless kiwis. They can, normally you're going to run about 1 male per at least 4 females. I've got the plans of having 4 females here with 2 males, and then those females can put out, results vary, but people pretty much say over 100 to up to almost 200 pounds worth of food in a year from just one plant when she's mature and producing. So happy to see that now they're getting room to grow this year and check out this place and begin to cover this trellis more without the competition from these snake gourds. Yeah, you can see how dry that stem is. Big thick stem for that snake gourd, but it's just broken up now. So had a good run of the snake gourds this year, got some in the freezer, ate a lot fresh, and now we're waiting for next year to grow more of those. So I do have a number of little trellises running across my property too. When I got rid of tomato cages last year, I just planted a tomato on each side of it, let them cover the trellis as part of an experiment, but then also to be growing an annual there. And in the center I had planted these, which are some muscadine grapes. Up until about a week or 2 ago, we had never even tried muscadine grapes. I'd only tried a variety of just regular grapes, but we absolutely loved them when we got to try them. Met some folks we knew of for a while, but finally got to meet them in person. They blessed us with a good amount of those, and we were really thankful and grateful for that opportunity to give them a try. So on my trellises, I've got 3 places I want them here just running in a row. Only 2 of them actually took. I've got a blank here, but when these vines grow really long, what I do is I just bury them in the ground, and then I'm able to layer them that way, and they'll begin to put roots out, so that I can snip that root off, the rooted plant, and then fill in my blank or propagate to put ones in other places on my property or to send to other people too. What you got, boy? Wow. We'll get to this in a minute, but Monster Truck is harvesting Malabar spinach right now. Look at the size of those leaves. I'll be over there soon enough, guys. Thank you, son. Wow. Yeah, make a couple nice stacks of those, because we'll prep some stuff for our upcoming camping trip. So this is an example of one that has grown down to the ground level already. And this one I'll be burying. I'll give you guys just a quick demonstration of what I do so you guys can think about this with different things you've got too. All I do is remove the leaves from part of the stem here, and then kind of strip it, just kind of defoliating it. Get a nice section. There's 2 different ones here. I'll probably do this other one later. Whoa, that's a tough plant. So now I have a section that is bare. Okay, I got a bunch of leaves at the end, a whole section that's stripped. And I'll just sit there and make a trench. And this isn't even really soil. You know, here is just my wood mulch. And down underneath it is a layer of pretty much clay and rock. That is the soil here in these parts. The monster truck here is going to put that down under the ground. We're going to put this stuff back on top of it. And then get your rocks in. We're going to put that rock on top of it. So now what we have is this part here. Got all sorts of leaves on it. This part here runs straight into the ground, and then it's buried there. Now these nodes can either produce fruit, leaves, tendrils. You know, these here have tendrils. But if they're underground, they can produce roots. So this plant right now is getting its power from the main power supply, which goes here, all the way up across there, and then back down to the main stem. But it's going to be rooting here eventually, and that's just to keep it in place, keep it doing what we want. And then once it gets roots here, I can snip this off to do it again. I love just the process with this stuff. And then I can lift up this one with its roots and fill in the blank over there. So right now at the bottom of this muscadine grape, we do have some strawberries growing as well, but then we're trying out some different peppers this year. And these guys are actually the mini bell pepper. So one thing I like about these mini bells, I'll show you. Yeah. Oh, those are cool. So one thing I like about these guys is when you think about a bell pepper, if you slice it, people can eat them in those slender spears, slender little strips, and they'll dip them in stuff. They'll enjoy them, they'll eat them, whatever it may be. But you're not really going to take a whole bell pepper and just give it to a kid to eat. These are small enough that we can use them as a snack. Wow. I love that. So we can pick a bunch of these, just have them sitting on the counter, and when the kids want a little snack, they'll run up, grab a whole bell pepper, because they're mini bell peppers, and they'll just eat the whole thing. Inside is an absolutely wonderful supply of seeds for the following year, and these are probably going to be coming in force next year. We're probably going to grow a lot of these. We have this for a sweet pepper. We also have a Sunglow, which is a very flavorful, not hot pepper, and then some mini sweets this year that we're really enjoying. And just kind of to have free snack food fresh from the garden that kids can eat. Oh yeah, hold that up right about there. See, so you can see all those seeds Monster Truck got on his. We should probably just save these for next year. Set them down somewhere we can remember them, maybe on the big flat rock. So to me, I love something like that though, where the kids can come out and pick them. We can just have them sitting around, other than maybe giving them a rinse if we want to. We don't have to do any work to them. There's no cutting up, no decoring, none of that stuff. And they ask for them by name. So an absolutely great pepper. We definitely like it. I think I may just give a full pepper tour video and kind of go in depth with each of the pepper varieties we're growing and why. Oh yeah, here's a second look at that Malabar he was picking. So I'm prepping up some different stir-fry meals and stuff for our upcoming camping trip. I'm gonna prep a lot of food ahead of time, so when we get there, all we just gotta do is heat it up in the Dutch oven. Get wing beans, anything like that, big or smaller, okay, and put those in there. So yeah, let's continue through. That was funny. On the way over here, Monster Truck said, "Dad, can I have one more?" I asked for another of those mini bell peppers, and now he's eating them as he works his way over towards the noodle beans. The second one is the one that we don't have a muscadine growing on yet. I've got that in the works, as you guys saw. But this year we just grew some basil on each side of it, and then some smaller tomatoes on the inside. So I've got a bunch of little tomatoes growing down this row with some basil dispersed throughout it. They're pretty good for companion planting. People like to grow those together, so that's what we're doing here. And that's kind of the middle one. And then in this first one, we've got the muscadines again growing. There's one heading up over here, which actually goes underground right in front of me. It's already got roots established. We also have some garlic mustard growing at the bottom. A couple little pepper plants and a tomato down here too. That was a volunteer. I like letting volunteers grow when I'm able to. So got a good amount of, I think, Arkansas Traveler tomatoes just growing here. And this one, you know, we only planted this last year and it's grown a lot. But it actually did have one fruit on it this year. We're looking for more in the future, but it had one fruit started on this year. This is another example of just trying to grow things in layers. These are actually two nice big, well, they're getting bigger, apricot trees. And I'm going to kind of keep them pruned where we can always walk up and grab the fruit. A lot of this will get pruned back over the winter, and then I think I'm going to be grafting some of the scions I cut off into some wild plum, which we have a number of in some 5-gallon buckets, and there's also wild plum naturally in the area, which is a good rootstock. The bottom level that I'm standing in is actually right now a mixture of garlic and strawberries, and there's a couple currant bushes dispersed in it. This is the type of stuff that as we move forward I'm going to be very happy I began to do something with, because I don't want to get 5-10 years down the road and be like, oh, if I would have only planted some trees and some different stuff years ago, then we could, you know, have fruit already and stuff like that. So these are getting established here now, and again, this is a 3-layer perennial garden bed, which is really cool. And then also, as we age, this bed, this garden site is a little distance from the house. So as we age, the plan is to eventually phase out some of the annuals, turn this more into just a perennial food forest where everything's pretty much taken care of itself, and we can just kind of come up periodically rather than the more labor-intensive annual growing that people usually have to do with a garden. We'll move our kind of kitchen garden closer to the house, have a nice perennial food forest up here. Should be nice and established by then. I'm not sure, but you know, we got to invest in the future now, so that way when we get there, we've got some ROI, some return on our investment. So this one should be a familiar sight for a lot of you. This is where I grew my snake gourds last year. It was the original kind of cedar post trellis, made with stuff off the lands and some scrap wire and other things. And then this year is where I've been growing my Chinese red noodle beans, one of my top 4 garden plants. Absolutely love them. And they're still cranking it out really hard. This is like their 3rd month probably of just dumping stuff out. I did begin recording a number of videos I was going to string together, just focusing on the Chinese red noodle bean. The problem is that over time I've got empty SD cards, I back up storage, some stuff gets lost, so I'll have to spend some real time digging through my video history and trying to collect all this together so I can actually bring you just a great informative video about this absolutely amazing plant. If you guys can see, it's going off so crazy right now. It's already given us a lot of seeds for the future, so we've got brand new seeds for these already in our Homesteaders Co-op store. And you know, when you produce for 3 or 4 months out of the year and you're getting handfuls every week, and your handfuls are 12 to 14 to 18 inches long, I think it's absolutely fantastic, whether you're feeding, you know, a person or a whole group of people. So for us, especially with a family of 8 already, definitely get a lot of bang for our buck growing this plant. This year I've only got 20 plants growing, but next year I plan on upping it to about 100 or 120, so that I'm forced to can and pickle and freeze these guys, so we've got a great supply probably for multiple years to come. So this is one of the trellises that we just took a cattle panel, bent it over, and we tried growing some cucumbers on. We did have some dragon egg cucumbers and some other ones we were growing here. The dragon eggs we got a couple from, some of the other ones didn't do so well. It was not a good cucumber year for us this year. That's fine. We still got a ton of pickles, and we're able to eat enough other stuff fresh that, you know, we didn't really miss not having just a ton of cucumbers. That worked out fine. Right now I've just got some white icicle radishes planted around here, and I'm probably going to transition into some fall crops very near future. Just needed time to do it. Right in front of me is some chicory. I believe this may have been some chicory that I got from Hootenanny Homestead. So very cool. Chicory is a great plant, used in a lot of different ways, and I just wanted to kind of get some planted. We're going to save some of the seeds from it too. Use it as a green. It's a great wild edible, and you know, people will take the roots and roast them, use them as a coffee substitute, other things as well. So cool just to have some growing here, and definitely trying to diversify, you know, everything that we are growing. So here's another mixed multitude raised bed. This is actually one toothache plant. There's a ton of these buzz buttons, these little flower heads that I've got to harvest. They're good for a number of things, but people also like to use them if they have toothaches and stuff. Chew on them, suck on them, numbs your mouth up. And then there's comfrey growing behind here with some little apricot trees getting established too. Eventually it's just going to be an upper layer of apricot trees with comfrey filling in the bottom. They're definitely reproducing already too. So I've got comfrey I can use other places. I probably will put in eventually kind of an herbal salad bar for our sheep and goats. Just an area that's just got some different stuff growing that we let them into periodically that are all medicinal, nutritious, and you know, herbal stuff that they can pick and choose kind of what they want to eat, kind of self-medicate. So looking forward to that, and comfrey is one of the things that we're going to be planting out in there. Okay guys, sorry to fit a snake into this one, but Pinky Pepper just walked up with one of these little baby black rat snakes. If you know, we hatched a dozen of these from eggs. Large black rat snakes pose a threat to some of our animals, so they can kill our quail. They can eat a lot of our different eggs, but we caught a mom. We were going to relocate. She laid she laid eggs in a bucket while we had her temporarily detained awaiting relocation, and we decided just to create an environment for them to see if we could hatch them out. They did, and the kids were actually able to hold them in their hands. Our top 5 older children were able to do that, and then so was my wife, just to hold a wild snake egg in their hand and watch this guy hatch out. This guy is so iridescent right now because what happened?
He shedded.
He shed. I'll switch with you.
Whatever it's called.
So look at that beautiful shed. The mouth is actually open on it, you know, because they start working it off and it just starts peeling back, turning inside out. So this one, you know, took its clothes off inside out, you know. This is the outside's in and the inside's out, but very cool to see that. So
and we know it's from this one because we saw it come out of it.
Yeah, so yesterday the kids actually saw this particular snake shedding, which is so cool. I'm gonna give you guys a close look. Actually, you can hold it up here for a second. Try to just hold it in front of that camera and let it focus for a minute, because I don't know if you guys can see that beautiful color. But very cool, Pinky. Thanks for sharing. So if you guys remember this one, we did a video a while ago just talking about these, which I consider to be like the fruit snack of the forest. These are passion fruits, also known as maypops. Very cool. There are a number of different ones around the world. Some of them are yellow, some of them are green, some of them are purple. Ours happen to ripen to green. These are actually pretty heavy. They feel probably about like an egg, maybe a little heavier. But when they fall to the ground, I know they're fully ripe, so we still got a number of them growing here. This was another wild plant that just happened to show up in our garden, so we let it grow. Very pleased with our decision because we had over 100 of these hanging out here, which is very cool, and the kids love them, Mama Pepper loves them, I love them. So just, we made a good decision in my mind to actually let these grow here, and we're looking forward to establishing more on our property just because they are such a tasty, wonderful, amazing treat. Definitely way up there with our favorite things to eat in the woods. So here we've got some yacone growing from Bob Mel's Simple Living. This is the plant here. Another one there, and then another one up in here. It was in the midst of a volunteer tomato, that passion fruit vine, which covered a lot more of this earlier, and then next to the apricot growing here. So it did not reach its full potential as far as height and growing and stuff, but it's still alive, it's still doing well. We're going to see what we get underneath, if we actually get any of the big kind of sweet potato shaped yacone tubers this year, or if it's mostly just rhizomes to grow them again next year. We'll find out, but still got them growing. Big thanks to Bob Mel's. Bob Mel's Simple Living right now used to be Bob Mel's Gardens. I definitely appreciate the gesture, the gift, being able to grow something we never grew before that was on our to-grow list. So very pleased with that. Thank you so much. Now here's another one I've been meaning to do a video on, just featuring, but this is the purple ice plant. So very beautiful plant, kind of a succulent, nice perennial. Planted them last year. I do plan on putting out a video on them specifically, but it's still here just growing as a ground cover, and then we want to get some stuff established above it too. And this one here is one of our moringa trees. We got our moringas in very late this year. I had some dwarf moringa seeds directly from Baker Creek, Bob Mel's Gardens, Wholesome Roots. Other people sent us some moringa seeds. There were some traveling around in the Box of Blessings, which is going to be featured in an upcoming video soon. I got it back in my possession, back from adventures in our garden. I already know where it's going. I just got to do the opening video, put it all together, and get it sent out to the next destination so we can keep that thing going. But with our moringas, I planted them very late. We got a number of them growing. 3 of them actually made it in the garden. If you're not familiar with this plant, it's kind of taking, you know, gardeners and the homesteading community and stuff by storm just because of how great it is. A lot of people love it. I'll nibble on it French too. But, yeah, it's kind of one of those foods that's so hearty and rich, people refer to it as a superfood, so definitely look into it. And there is dwarf varieties too. Where it's native, it's actually a tree. So to kind of grow it in a lot of the US, it's not going to work. Come here.
She just had them. I saw them come.
Pinky pepper again. Whoa. Oh man. Well. That's funny because your name's Pinky and these are Pinkies. Oh man. So Pinky Pepper just came up and said they found a mouse in the process of giving birth. So we've got 4 Pinkies, is what they call these, that are baby mice. We do have somewhat of a rodent problem on our homestead. Oh, I don't know if you can hear that. But that's the baby mouse there, and we're going to try to feed, was the goal, this black rat snake, and see if it'll eat one of these. I'm not sure. We're not going to do that right now in this video, but it's one of the reasons that we let the snakes go in the garden, is just to cut down on the next generation of little guys like this. So if that's not stuff you're into, it's not in this video. I just wanted to show you that because we were kind of waiting to find something like this, and we figured we would. Now we have. So yeah, not going to be in this video. And if you see the video about seeing if it'll eat them, you don't have to watch it if that's not your thing. If it is, you'll have to stay tuned. Yeah. So here's one I forgot about too, hidden under what was just a giant mess of passion fruit, is a salad green we were growing from Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company called Burnett. I guess it's maybe popular in the UK, I think, if I'm remembering right. But it's just a green, and I wasn't sure if any of it took. A couple of them did grow, and they grew shaded underneath here. We'll see how they do this fall. But the more different things we can be adding to our diet, the more foods we can be eating, trying from around the world, and even, you know, the more greens we're growing, we like that stuff. So definitely willing to give things a try. This one, if I remember right, is Burnett. So up behind me here is some little mulberry plants, little red mulberry trees, and then at the ground level is just a bunch of lemon balm. Those are just a couple nice perennials we were planning on establishing here, kind of letting the mulberries grow up like lollipops, where we had a single stem and then kind of ball them out at the top. You could always walk up and grab the fruit, and just having some ground cover of lemon balm. More stuff just to get established once and then be able to enjoy for years to come. In a similar way, we like to work into the landscape whatever is natural and native here, especially when we find it already growing. This tree here is Diosporos virginia. It's one of the American persimmons. It may be a male, I'm not sure because I've never seen fruit on it, but it is still rather young. So we pruned it back a little bit last year, and what I want to do is to graft in either like kaki or fuyu or some other type of persimmon, but an Asian variety that grows larger, seedless, non-astringent, and see if we can get that established right here. And then beneath it is just a bunch of American beautyberry. Sorry, not American gooseberry beneath it. There's American beautyberry growing elsewhere. That's American gooseberry. So just a couple layers, you know, in a raised bed, couple different layers of food, once again with just the natural native stuff here. So this one's been here the whole time. It was here before we moved on to this property. We just incorporated it into our landscape. Heading up this way, we've got a big long line, as you can see behind me, of a couple different things. The big things here are going to be the mulberries. So those are red mulberries, and I think I'm actually going to lift them. I think what I'm going to do is work in some swales into our pastures, and then on the south, or the sloping side, you know, the downhill side after the swales, begin to put in some of my different trees. These ones I may just uproot and put there. The cool thing about doing that with a plant like the mulberry is that I can actually just chop off a branch of this mulberry, stick it in the dirt, in the soil, which is what I did back over there by the lemon balm, and I'll have a whole new plant. So if I uproot a smaller tree, it's going to have some roots already established. I consider there's probably going to be a high success rate if you can root a stick to just relocate a tree. Should work. They're just not going to work out for what I was originally looking at them for here, and then they've really grown very strange because behind me is one of our pastures where the sheep and goats would stick their head through and nibble down these guys too. So they're growing kind of very strange from getting eaten at the side so much. So the goal is just to kind of protect them a bit when we get them established in the pasture while we get them established, let them grow up and over, and then you know, prune the smaller stuff off, let them grow up from there. And with them are these golden raspberries. So here's a couple of the golden raspberries. We got them from Shalom Acres originally, a very tasty one. Definitely like it, and they are well established here and spreading, so definitely love stuff like that. Again, another nice tasty perennial that'll just keep coming back with more and more power, more and more fruit for years to come. So I know I mentioned that in the future we'd be kind of transitioning this more towards just a perennial food forest and getting just some different layers of food going. A lot of it appears, as I kind of check through what we got going on, to be happening already. This is a nice whole bed full of strawberries. These strawberries also came to us from Shalom Acres. Very cool. They've done well for us. Definitely love them. Enjoy them. And they're actually overflowing this bed again. They did that earlier this year, and I kind of did some relocations and stuff, but they're doing it again. So I like that because it's just reproducing food-bearing plants, and we eat food, and plants grow on our property. It all works together. It makes sense. And then these guys you see sticking up over the top. Here's one in front of me. Here's another one here. This is one of 3 different types of goji berries that we already have growing on our property. This one is the kind of the traditional Chinese goji berry, the red goji berry that a lot of people are going to be familiar with. You can get them at health food stores, you can buy them dried, a lot of stuff like that. But they're kind of a thinner, wispy plant. So my thought was if I plant them here in the midst of my strawberries, they're not going to be blocking out much sun, and it's just a second harvest, a second crop I can grow from this same raised bed is my goal, is my idea. I see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 of them here. Maybe that's the number 6, but we're just going to test it and we're going to see how it works, and if they don't work well together, then I have a perennial I can lift out of my soil with the strawberries and move somewhere else. Or I have a perennial, these goji berries, that I can lift out of my soil and try somewhere else. And in the process, I will have learned something. So another nice multiple layer raised bed of perennial food. This is another one, got a variety of things growing in. There is some currants growing here, a couple of those around the outside. This is also a bed that we grew dill in earlier this year. And this is an aronia. So right here, aronia growing in the middle. They can crank out quite a harvest on a small tree. It's another native species, kind of underrated these days, was a familiar food to many people back in the day. They're kind of a little dry, but they're one of those powerful, full of antioxidants, deep, rich berries that that we love, that we enjoy, just simply because we'll try about anything and incorporate a lot of the stuff into our diet. So aronia, if you're not familiar with it, we've got one growing here, and I actually have some other ones I need to get established too. Check this out, guys. This is one of the reasons I love volunteers. Boom, see that? See all those red little guys down there? And look at this. I don't know if you guys can see in my hand, that nice stinger, that thorn. This is a scorpion pepper. And I've got a number of scorpion peppers growing here, but I didn't plant any this year. What happened is last year I had some I was going to save for seed, and the frost hit really hard. They kind of all got yucky and fell to the soil. So this one grew from seed by itself in my garden this year. This is one of the things I love about gardening and growing down here as opposed to my native Wisconsin, just because you couldn't get a pepper plant to do this in Wisconsin, where you direct sow a seed and it gets this big in this amount of time. Absolutely love that. So this is going to be, again, another apricot tree, and then behind it is a wild plum. So this wild plum will probably be used as a rootstock. I'm just getting it established in my soil, letting it grow up, and then I can graft things into it. In the middle there is the Yasta berry. The Yasta berry was created in the 70s by crossing a member of the gooseberries family with some currants, and Yasta berry, member of the ribes family. Very cool. Definitely enjoy them. Our middle plant produces better than the other two. But we'll kind of keep an eye on them, see how they do. The hugel mound, the original one, just has some kale growing in it right now. Everything else kind of fizzled out and we haven't resowed it. So I should be doing something with this because it's soil available to me to grow for my family. And if I'm not planting things, if I'm not growing, then we're not getting any food from that area. You can see where some of the daikon radishes that I planted. You know, kind of almost like a loofah is what it almost looks like, but they dove down in the soil, they broke up, all that organic material has been added there, and then we'll go from there. What do you got there, son?
Kale.
Oh, nice, nice, good. Get some of the dinosaur kale too, okay? And put it all in that thing.
There's a daikon radish. And there's
Oh,
a big
you're
one
right.
too.
So here's actually one of the wild persimmons growing up, and here's a daikon radish that reseeded itself. Could we let these go to seed? This is actually all old daikon radish. So there's another baby there. Whoa, Pinky, what do we got?
It's alive. It's just, I don't know, sleeping.
So Pinky found this big caterpillar, and you had a guess about it. What did you guess?
It was a Luna moth caterpillar.
So we checked it out online, and sure enough, as far as we know, we've never seen a Luna moth caterpillar, have we?
No.
I never have. So she thought maybe it's a Luna moth, and sure enough, so are we going to let that go or let it try to go into a cocoon?
I think I'm going to try to let it go to a cocoon.
Cool.
We did that with another caterpillar. It stinks. And then...
Oh yeah, it's probably some sort of swallowtail one.
And Monster Chuck caught another one and he put it in by Dad's tarantula because that's where the other one made a cocoon. And the tarantula ate it.
Yeah, we had a tarantula I brought home to show the family before we went and let it go. And Monster Truck was collecting a certain type of caterpillar, letting them turn into cocoons, so we put the next caterpillar in there with it. Tarantula was leaving the cocoons alone, but he decided to eat that caterpillar, so that was a little interesting. If you guys see this one here, should be recognizable to many people. A nice pad type cacti, a prickly pear. We definitely like eating these nopales, these cacti, and then also the fruit though is very tasty. So again, just another perennial we're getting established now. And these guys, I mean, it's as simple as just ripping off one of these pads and sticking it in the soil. That's how we got all these. I'll show you guys a look at the whole thing. But here's our little cluster of them. And you know, the original pad down there in the soil has now got 5 other pads growing on it. That one's got 5 other pads growing on it. This one has 6 extra pads growing on it. So they just kind of keep growing and growing. And then you can pick off the young ones, like especially like this before they even have spines, and just eat them up. Eat them up. We've eaten them a number of ways. Very popular food in many places, and the pad type of cacti is edible, so very cool. It's got a certain look to it, and then also just to have it as a food source that's there for years and years and years to come makes so much sense to me. So here's a patch of horseradish we've got going on. Very cool. Love having our own horseradish, a good bitter herb that we're able to use a number of ways throughout the year. And it's a little wilty, it's a little, you know, been out here in the heat, but doing very well. And then this is one of my favorite peppers as far as look. So just check out those deep purple flowers, those crazy black fruit that eventually ripen to this vibrant red. This is the black pearl pepper. And a black pearl is considered an ornamental. Yeah, it looks very striking, very beautiful. The foliage is so dark it's almost black. The flowers are amazing. And then especially when they start setting that fruit and it turns beautiful and red like that. Absolutely incredible, but it's also got a decent heat level. So one that people call ornamental just because most people won't eat things that hot anyway. Looks very beautiful, grown, you know, as an ornamental, but we like using it as a food source too. And actually this is amazing. The goats used to stick their head through the fence and nibble it down. That's why it's growing out one way. There's 2 plants established here, but we're actually going to have a number of seeds, and maybe we'll have to offer those up too if people are looking for just an amazing, beautiful pepper to grow. So this is a second type of goji berry we have growing here. This is the Korean goji berry. Unlike the black goji berry or the wolfberry, this is another red one, just like the Chinese, but I hear that these do better in our area, so we're growing both kinds. This, I started some originally from seed and then did quite a bit of propagation by cuttings, and they're one that we're going to need to look into utilizing better, simply because the leaves can also be used for tea. I think they can be used as a salad green. People do a lot of things with this plant. Primarily, most people just use it for the berries, and that's what we had been doing so far. This is a perennial. This is one that's easy to propagate. This is one with a lot of good nutritional value, and something we're very pleased to have growing here, especially already, because then we can just continue to grow it for years to come. I've got it running up a trellis just because it's such a thin, wispy plant. The flowers here are beautiful too. They kind of remind me of the black pearl pepper. They're just not quite as dark, but they are purple. Check this out. So look at that, guys. Absolutely beautiful little flowers. Once they're pollinated, they dry like these guys here. And then here you can see some of the berries hanging. Green at first, eventually ripen to red. Very beautiful, very cool. Definitely love these. They taste a little bit more like peppers almost when they are fresh, but you dry them and they become sweeter. And just love a big healthy wall of them growing here. Oh yeah, tucked back here in the corner too, there's a couple more lemon balms and then stinging nettle up in the corner. So the stinging nettle can grow out that way into the pasture. The animals can nibble on it too, but it's kind of just sitting there in a corner of my garden. And then this area can all be replanted too. We had potatoes going using the Ruth Stout method earlier this year, but there's not really anything happening here right now except for a couple little greenbrier shoots. So we'll do something with that as well too. Just saw another lizard running around here. It's so cool to see all the 5-line skinks, the little brown skinks, the eastern prairie lizards, all part of our organic pest control policy here. Doing well, keeping a steady prowl in this garden. That's one of the reasons I like using these rocks for the raised beds too. I'm sitting on top probably 4 or 5 inches. It's been compressed since then of wood mulch, and then on the inside, you know, this is actually built up quite a bit where I can just kind of reach my hand down and grab, wow, a lot deeper than you normally would be able to here in the Ozarks. That went down about 4 inches just with my bare fingers right now. Here I've got the ghost pepper. So it came out of India some years ago, 3 times hotter than a habanero, took the world by storm, over 1 million Scoville heat units, and it's actually the reason I first became a hothead and really started enjoying heat. They've been in my garden for years, grew them up in Wisconsin, grew them down here, and they're all kind of leaning over because of some of the big storms lately. So that's a little unfortunate, but they're obviously cranking out an incredible harvest, a very large, beautiful one. I like these too. If you take one of these, cut it in half, and just drop it in like a quart jar of pickles or pickled eggs, and just let it sit there for a bit when you make them, it just kind of infuses the things with a nice level of heat. It's not unbearable, like taking a bite of a raw pepper here, but it brings everything up to a nice level. This is my favorite pepper for many years, and I definitely love the fact I can get often hundreds of peppers off of just one plant. So used to lift them from the soil, put them in 5-gallon buckets, bring them inside the house up in Wisconsin, then set them out again the next spring. Down here, I definitely crank out enough in a year. I started these back in December when I was doing the germination test for our seed store. And I opened that up on the first of the year and have been offering these available for sale, the seeds, so people can grow their own ghost peppers too. Very cool. So tucked back behind the ghost peppers here is this plant. Oh, let's see if I can get them up. And this plant, very interesting leaf structure. Kind of looks like some other stuff, but this is Vitex. This is the chaste tree. So another perennial, great for bees, but also there's a number of things that to promote women's health and kind of proper body function and things. The chaste tree, Vitex, is used, put in a lot of different pills and stuff too, but if we can just have it growing here in its raw form, that's better for us. So looking forward to letting this one grow up over the years to come. Here's a leaf that got nibbled on and kind of fell down, but it's getting established here too. I can't wait to see what this this area looks like in a couple years, just because of how much is going on and growing and the different diversity. So the Chase tree, check it out if you guys aren't familiar with it yet. You know, do some research, see what you guys think. If you guys are into homebrew or things like that, you might recognize these little guys. These are hops. There's some Cascade, Chinook, Sterling, Golding varieties growing here. And I'm gonna have to kind of take them back a little bit again. They came out in this area with some asparagus and stuff, but they're another perennial. Great for bees. And there's also a number of things besides making just homebrew that you can do with them. So got them established on our property already. Got some asparagus that we've got growing in front, and I think the asparagus was from, I think, Albany Mountain Homestead. Boston Mountain Homestead and Albany Mountain Homestead, I get them mixed up sometimes, but I think this should have been Albany Mountain Homestead. And then when we went out to help Jeff at Bobblehead Homestead, I think Boston Mountain Homestead dropped off their camper that we were able to sleep in while we were there for a couple days helping. I think that's right, but got some gifted asparagus growing here. That Tamarillo, the dwarf Tamarillo, reseeded itself, so it's growing here. That's where we had it last year. Heading up this way, we've kind of got a mess. Eventually, the dinosaur kale was able to fight itself off from the bugs, and it's starting to get established pretty good. Behind there is onions and kale, just like a blue Scotch curled kale there. Here is where we're growing the sweet potatoes from Essayon's Family Garden, formerly Sapper Garden. They're the purple sweet potatoes, and they're what's across all of my paths and raised beds. One of the reasons I like raised beds is that my gardens would normally look like this. I'd plant things too close, but even with 2 or 3 foot raised beds down the middle, if you let things grow this way, they definitely will. And I'll bend them back in once again and get them going. Some of our sunflowers there growing up. And then up here, we just got some volunteer tomatoes, some basil. There's Paseo Baillo peppers in there. And then the perennials are 3 different cherry bushes hanging out in there next to our Chinese red noodle beans. Look at the size of this one, guys. This is like 12 feet out of here that this is growing from those, from those purple sweet potatoes. So it's just taken off across here on the back side of our figs. These figs are brown turkeys. They are definitely a nice thick wall of figs at this point. Here I have pitaya, dragon fruit. I used to have 5 buckets of these. 5 buckets of these was too many. I have 3 right now. But it's a succulent cactus. It grows in segments. It'll absolutely take over an area in the down south. I've seen them bigger than like a SUV, just one plant sprawled out. But to actually kind of cultivate them, people normally let them grow up like this stem is here to the top, and then just kind of let them branch out from there. A lot of this is going to be pruned back at the end of the year. If you guys live in Florida, South Texas, especially like zones 10 or 11, this is a great plant just to even stick outside. Here it's not really a plant for year-round, but we just move them inside the house at the end of the year and then put them outside. So I'm going to be propagating these, cutting them off at the end of the year, offering the cuttings up for sale in the Homesteaders Co-op store, and then just kind of letting mine continue to grow. This was going to be the year that I was going to try to get a harvest ourselves and kind of focus on actually making them flower and fruit. But I took my 5 buckets and I put them out too early, and they got hit by a frost and they died. Now thankfully in a spare shower we have in our bathroom, I had some cuttings that were still there, so then I replanted this year with some cuttings I had, thankfully, and kind of starting over again. But we'll see how they do for us. And again, it's just experimenting. A lot of things that I grow here from around the world, a lot of things aren't really for my climate. And if some of the stuff that doesn't really turn into a perennial here is too difficult for me, I can just give up on that stuff. But I'm learning along the way. So a wall of tomatoes over here. Had some black vernissage, some larger cherry tomatoes, and then also chocolate cherry tomatoes. And then here's where you started with the Malabar spinach. The Malabar spinach is a giant wall of green. My son picked a bunch earlier. You can't even tell. I think I'm going to try to actually just like take out as much of this as I can, harvest it like crazy, and see exactly how much I can actually put up. Absolutely amazing green. And this is the one, guys. Look at this wall behind me, okay? I did not plant that plant this year. It is growing like crazy. It's giving us fresh greens all the time. We love them raw. We love them cooked. There it is, just kicking butt, doing an amazing job. But we didn't plant that. It reseeded itself. So very exciting. Up on this side, we've actually got under these figs catnip and some more toothache plant yarrow. There's lemongrass in here. There's mugwort, and then just kind of repeats itself. It flips back over at the mugwort. It's a lemongrass, toothache plant, yarrow, and then catnip again. So a number of perennials, and then some stuff like lemongrass that's not. I'll be lifting those. Those came from Mississippi Gulf Coast Gardener. So very cool to have that. Mugwort I meant to do a more in-depth video on too. Haven't got there yet. That's this guy growing out here. Very cool herb. Probably a lot less known these days than it used to be. But we've got this one established. This is its second year already, and I cut it back once this year just to prevent it from growing too much and seeding everywhere. Well, here's some wild edibles like Curly Dock popping in. But this is what I wanted to show you guys here. This is a young American beautyberry that I propagated and planted here. This will be a big bush probably next year or the year after. Natural mosquito repellent right here. And then the berries are very tasty too. So getting stuff established, and this is the one I got to clean up and actually get planted too. Here's another volunteer section. Got some Malabar spinach that volunteered I never cut back, and then the toothache plant. And there's peppers mixed in there too. I don't think those peppers will ever actually produce. Some of the ones back there might. But just look at that, just a sea of giant buzz buttons, electric daisies, toothache plant, and it was all just volunteers. So I'm gonna cut those flower heads and save them too, and we'll go from there. Told you guys this would be like a full garden tour, so we're gonna do what we can. We're gonna do what we can. For those of you guys who stuck with me this far, thank you very much. Apparently you're really curious. This gives you a better depth. I'm not even taking care of everything on the whole property, just the main garden, just this area, and giving you guys kind of a more in-depth look. But here we go, continuing. So these are some local sweet potatoes that have been grown for generations here. Neighbor gave me, they weren't able to get them planted, so they gave me a bunch of slips. They said, please just grow them and give us some back at the end of the year. So they're growing through this area. Over there, some cayenne peppers. I grew from some seeds I saved from American Homestead. And then here we've got Romas and some different Italian tomatoes and different stuff heading across. Back there's electric grapes, some yellow pears, or atomic grapes. Other ones, just two big rows of tomatoes here. You can see how those sunchokes have just tipped over across the path there. So this probably looks a little weird, a little interesting, but these are Chinese, they're mosaic long beans. So kind of like the Chinese red noodle beans, mosaic long beans, but we're saving them for seeds, so we're just letting them grow and dry. Oh, it's caught in my hair. Oh, there we go. This is kind of the color of them. Another very beautiful long bean, something we definitely enjoy, but I wanted to preserve my seeds and establish kind of a seed bank of them. So that's why you see so many ones just going to seed this year. And I think people also use those as like a dried bean places too. So that's another experiment we can do, is just save a bunch for dried beans rather than like pintos or navy beans or great northern beans or some of the other things that people use. This is an open seed bed right now, open raised bed. It's where we had our red swan bush beans. Got a volunteer tomatillo in there right now, and some common yellow wood sorrel. Looks like a carrot too, but that should be planted. One of the projects. Tobacco that volunteered there on its own. This is the gack fruit. There's a pot here and a pot there, and it's growing across here. Gack fruit is very interesting. Oh, we're actually going to flower this year. I wasn't sure if we would. Looks like we're going to flower this year. I think it would have been done better if I would have repotted it this year. You need a male and a female to get them going. I'm not sure what I have, but I've got at least half because I saw one of them flower, and we'll see what the other one is. It's one of those you're never really going to encounter unless you're either in Asia or grow it yourself, because it doesn't transport well, doesn't ship well, but more beta-carotene than carrots, more lycopene than tomatoes. Very interesting plant. We'll see what happens with it. So here just got some chives and some clary sage, along with volunteer wild lamb's quarter. Looks like it's going to seed. I'll have to watch that. Here's where I'm growing my Sunglow peppers this year. These guys really crank out a harvest, and they're a very delicious, flavorful pepper. I mean, look at that, guys. Look at how many are packed onto the end of that thing. That is incredible to me. And they ripen to this beautiful yellow. So, love those. Plus, they're a thin-walled pepper. They dry really well. So this one's another exciting perennial garden, pretty much raised bed for the most part. This is trifoliate citrus. This one here and the one in front of me, a thorny plant, but it's a citrus tree that you can actually grow in Missouri, in Arkansas, in Oklahoma. People also use them for hedges just because they'll grow so thick and they're covered in thorns. But they make a rather seedy, kind of yellow, lemon-like fruit. We've enjoyed eating them, a lot of seeds, so you can grow a lot from it. And looking forward to see how they do here on our property. We enjoyed some up in Missouri before, where a guy had a number of them growing. And then down at my feet is just some of our rhubarb. I already got a number of cuttings off of it this year. Love just mixing it into like our oatmeal or things like that. Having a nice, tart, beautiful flavor. Or rhubarb crisp is something I grew up on. So glad we have that established too, with some purple cobra peppers growing around the edge too. And of course, more peppers back in the one I showed you that the sunchokes tipped on. Paseo Bahio is in there, the mini bell peppers are in there, and I'm not sure who else. I'll have to lift those sunchokes off of there and figure out who's hiding underneath. So on this one is just more tomatoes and basil. And then across here is where we did have some squash growing earlier. Looks like we got a daikon radish. And again, apologize, I haven't been home much. My life's kind of scattered sometimes, so you get piles of buckets and stuff. Marshmallow growing in the corner. These should be the goat's eye beans. So goat eye beans, we're letting them dry. They look like a goat eye. We got these when Prep Sitter Bob and Mrs. B stopped by with the Self-Reliant Roadshow. They were part of the gift pack we got from Baker Creek, because Baker Creek became a supporter of the Self-Reliant Roadshow. So growing them there, and there was some Roma tomatoes and stuff growing underneath there. If you look at my Carolina Reapers here, Carolina Reapers were the pepper that replaced the ghost pepper as the hottest pepper in the world, and they've since been replaced after that. But they're all just tipped over too. These things were like 6 feet tall. But you can see there is a spicy, wonderful harvest waiting to happen, so I've got to get to that. I think these are snowcap beans growing there on those sunflowers. And then, guys, there's a whole section over there, too, with achacha cucumbers and bitter melons and celeste figs. And there's a papaya that we grew from seed with some seeds we got from Practical Modern Homestead. A number of peppers over there, some corn, some other stuff, Chinese green noodle beans, a number of things over there. But, like I said, I'm just doing a main garden, full garden tour, which is why there's a Methley, a Burbank, and an early plum tree behind me, just to kind of round out some of the fruit trees in the area. Got a long way to go, guys. Got a lot of work to do, and it's been a lot of work to get to this point. I'm not gonna lie. Last March there was pretty much nothing in this area, so to be like 18 months later and to have all this going on just is a great encouragement for me. And to sit there and learn all sorts of the local stuff. We've got service berries and the bushberry, gooseberries and the beauty berries and the, all sorts of the wild stuff we can work into our landscape. All sorts of things we can introduce to it. Looking forward to it. Although it's kind of a mess right now, it needs to be harvested, it needs to be weeded, it needs to be cut back and tipped up and things like that. It's our mess. We enjoy it, and I'm happy to see how far we've come. I've said it before, but I wouldn't be that into gardening if we didn't eat food on a daily basis. We do, and we've got a lot of mouths to feed. This is a way that we can do so for much cheaper and have a trustworthy, rich, organic, natural food source, and I'm passionate about that. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. Anyone still here? We're going to do some trivia this video. I'm not going to let you guys bail on me. Not going to keep you there this long and not give you guys some trivia. So, here we go. Alright guys, with the trivia from the last video, the tarantula video, I said that some tarantula species can live to 5 to 7 years before they reach sexual maturity. They'll pretty much eat anything they can overpower. Across North America, there's about 50 species of tarantulas, and one mechanism And one mechanism of self-defense that they have besides biting is that they have irritating, itchy little hairs. So if you answered all 4 of those questions correctly in the last video, then you were in the running for a shout out on this video. The shout out on this video goes to Wildcat Hollow Farm. You're the big winner. And I said, besides just getting a shout out, if you got a mailing address, I'll ship you that tarantula. No, I'm just kidding. I did say that, but I'm not going to do it. So, yeah, there's a picture of that tarantula on my hand. You may not want to. That's probably extra shipping. Anyway, that leads us to the trivia for this video. Right near the end of this video, I mentioned that last year, nothing almost was done on this property at the beginning of it. I mentioned a specific month, about 18 months ago. Which month did I say that this place was pretty much not a whole lot going on? Question number 2. What is that big plant that tipped over on top of my peppers that we're going to be offering up some tubers for sale at our homesteading co-op store this fall? What's that big plant? One of the common names. Question number 3. I'm growing cold hardy kiwi on a trellis, and they're pretty much the only thing growing on that trellis right now, but something used to grow there that died. What plant was I growing on my cold hardy kiwi trellis? And question number 4, how many species of goji berry did I say were growing on our homestead? I did not show all of them, but I mentioned a certain number, and I did mention them all by name. How many species of goji berry do we have growing on our property? If you know the answer to those 4 questions, leave them in the comment section below, but choosing one person who answers all 4 of them correctly to give a shout out to in an upcoming video. Papa out.